Welcome to, or welcome back to, the Agatha May Detective Agency. I'm Agatha May, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at a court filing from 2017 in which John Paul Miller was trying to have the alimony he was paying to Allison reduced. Allison had already agreed to a reduction in child support prior to this, so JP was asking to pay her even less. He is just so generous. Here is what John Paul wrote. Number 1. In 2015, when my wife decided she wanted to separate, I gave her everything in hopes we could work things out and reconcile. I had no money for a lawyer and no place to stay. When I signed the original agreement at Allison's lawyer's office, I did so because they told me if I ever couldn't pay, that it was easy to go to court and ask for a reduction. And also because Allison gave me hope that we could reconcile. But did she really give you hope for a reconciliation? Or was this just the same kind of absurd thinking that had convinced you that if you climbed a tree, she would want to have makeup sex with you? Number 2. Since signing the agreement, I have had to borrow over $20,000 from friends, parents, grandparents, and taken cash advances on credit cards that are now maxed out. I even borrowed money from my church just to be able to pay Allison the alimony she requested while also trying to live and take care of my children. Does he realize how ridiculous he sounds? How many people are able to borrow over $20,000 from friends and family? And he borrowed money from his church? Does he know that if you borrow something, you're supposed to return it? Number 3. When the original agreement was signed in her lawyer's office that day, I did not have a stable place to live. Since then, I have gotten a place to live, with the help of friends, that is a little more money than what I was paying at the time of signing the agreement. How was he paying for a place to stay at the time of the agreement if he didn't have a stable place to stay? When I think of not having a stable place to stay, I think of couch surfing or living in my car, or maybe staying at an extended stay if I was particularly flush that week. His stories can be so asinine. Number 4. I work very hard and make a little over, redacted, a month gross income. I now pay $900 in child support and $1,100 in alimony each month. This leaves me with approximately, redacted, per month to live before taxes are taken out. I get my kids every other weekend and Tuesdays and Thursdays. I am thankful to have my children as much as my ex-wife does, and I don't want that to change, but I can't survive like this. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I am absolutely sobbing on the inside, just completely torn up at John Paul's plight. Number 5. My income was, redacted, at the time of signing the agreement because I got a housing allowance through work. Since then, Allison has come to my job, church, on a Sunday morning and screamed and cussed in front of over 20 parishioners, as well as harassed me in person many times when I pick up and drop off the kids. Her boyfriend has also threatened me several times and made me uncomfortable when I am picking up and dropping off my kids. I no longer get the housing allowance. I don't know what Allison showing up to the church, if that even happened, or Allison's boyfriend has anything to do with his housing allowance. And I'm guessing he was uncomfortable with Allison's boyfriend because he's a coward and knew her boyfriend could beat him to a pulp. Also, there are police reports that show that John Paul was the harasser and not Allison. Number 6. The stress of finances is unbearable, and I don't know who else I can borrow money from to pay her this amount of alimony and child support each month. Unbearable. So dramatic. I think if JP ends up in prison, he should totally start a theater group. He could still be on a stage, and he could be the drama queen that he was meant to be. Number 7. I believe Allison is not reporting all of her income. She has at least 3 jobs: Starbucks, babysitting, and Surfside United Methodist Church, so I believe her income has increased. I have also looked at her final declaration from the first case, and she only reported income of $527 and expenses of over redacted per month. So even with my $2,000, How has she not gone into debt over $1,300 every month? She obviously has other income. So I don't know why only some of the financial information is redacted. Horry County's court records seem to be a bit of a mess. One of the documents was a court ruling that happened in 2016, but was dated as being signed by the judge in 2006. So Allison had to work 3 jobs, but John Paul couldn't work more than one. One where he's only required to be available on Sunday and possibly needs one other day for him to download a sermon outline, write a lot about himself into it, throw in a few idiotic jokes and admit to something horrible, and tell the congregation how terrible his life is. So he still had 5 days to work a second job. Number 8. I am begging the court to please come up with a financial figure that allows me to live without borrowing money from other sources, pay child support, and be the great dad that I know I am. I don't mind eating Ramon noodles every night and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day, but I do not want to go to jail and lose my job and my children. Except he wasn't a great dad. Great dads aren't restricted from having their daughter for overnight visits. He doesn't mind eating ramen noodles but can't spell them. Or maybe Ramon noodles are a fancy version of ramen that I haven't heard about. Number 9. I would ask the court to reduce my alimony to $550 each month and set the child support accordingly. I will keep the van and be responsible for the cost if that will alleviate some of the financial burdens on her. So he wants to alleviate the financial burden on Allison, but also wants to pay her less. Number 10. I have tried very hard to settle this matter through my attorney, but have not been able to do so. I would like the court to have Allison reimburse me for the attorney fees I've had to borrow from my family. Well, the court doesn't care where you got the money for your attorney's fees, you doink. And can anyone else see Reggie's hand in this affidavit? If you put this next to any of the whiny affidavits and letters that Reggie has written, I'm not sure you could tell the two apart. So did dear old dad write this for JP? Or is JP just that much like his father? And then there's Allison's affidavit. I won't read her entire reply. I just want to share where she directly responds to John Paul's claims of his finances. And once again, Allie brings the heat. The defendant has provided me a financial declaration claiming his current income is now redacted. However, it is not supported by any financial documentation. Since the defendant is responsible for setting his own salary, it would be easy for him to manipulate what he is allegedly being paid. I do not believe his true income can be determined on a temporary basis, and request time to engage in discovery and obtain documents and information necessary to make an accurate determination of his income. Allison was married to JP for 15 years, so she knows him very well, and she believes that he would manipulate the amount he's being paid and do so in a sworn affidavit. But remember, the words, "You can lie on an affidavit," came directly out of John Paul's own face hole, so there's that. In addition to monthly salary, historically the church has also provided reimbursement for cell phones, gas, food, eating out, entertainment, health necessities, medical funds, and more. Additionally, at the time we entered the amended agreement, the defendant was not able to work due to his injuries, and the church was at an all-time low with only one service per weekend. Despite saying he claimed his income was redacted at that time and that he could meet his financial responsibilities. John Paul didn't just get a salary and housing allowance from the church, he also got a big chunk of his other expenses paid for. Now, if there are any current congregants of Solid Rock Church, or whatever the name is now, listening to this, take note. The money you are giving to the church is possibly being used so John Paul can eat at restaurants and have entertainment money. And I guess if you're cool with paying for his and Susie's dinner dates, it's no biggie. I've heard that allegedly one of his favorite forms of entertainment is going to strip clubs. So again, if you're fine with your tithes ending up in the G-string of a stripper, everything is copacetic and you just keep giving your money to Monkey Boy. Since that time, the defendant is back to full-time ministry, continues to serve as the head pastor, has hired an assistant pastor and music minister, and gone to 3 services per weekend, which means more people are attending the church. He is also leasing out the building to other churches and Horry County schools during the week. It is hard to understand how the defendant is suddenly making less now when every aspect of the ministry has improved. I just love Allison. She serves up a heaping plate of gotcha jerkface, but has the grace of June Cleaver serving Ward a Sunday roast dinner. The defendant has also moved into a new house, immediately in front of our marital residence, and obtained a boat, motorcycle, and golf cart. I do not understand how he can have these things, but not afford to be able to pay alimony. He also has various roommates that live with him and contribute to his rental payment and overhead. JP had money to buy a house, a boat, a motorcycle, and a golf cart, but can't pay his court-ordered alimony. Isn't that just so Miller of him? Things did not go John Paul's way, though. The court denied his request for a temporary modification of alimony and child support, and he had to continue paying what he'd been ordered to pay. It sounds as though the judge didn't believe his story of having to live on rations of store-brand canned beans and bread he pulled out of the dumpsters. I think maybe the fact that he had money for big boy toys like a boat and motorcycle and golf cart kind of made his story of struggling to pay bills seem like a bit of a big fat lie. Imagine that. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe, like, comment, become a member, and give us a little jazz hands, as these things help my channel grow. Until next time, stay safe and be happy.